Hello, this is Michelle and Tackett here with another interview with lovely Miss Erica Burns. And we are going to talk about a really important subject, and that is the discrimination and how hostile workplaces can be for disabled LGBTQ people and how society treats disabled people as well. Erica, thank you for joining me. And I've been in the workplace, but I was lucky. I know my job didn't pay the most, but the people there treated me like gold. Unfortunately, though,
Excellent.
unfortunately though, most disabled people or trans people don't have that experience, or there's a large group of them that don't. So, how do you feel about what you're experiencing right now? Like, how?
Absolutely, yeah. I will say I have had some jobs that have treated me with respect. That I was very thankful when I lived out in LA before COVID hit. Before that, I had a job at a call center where I was very well appreciated. That my quirkiness and my I was embraced. I was seen as one of the best callers there. They looked up to me. They asked me if I could train other people, and I was treated with respect. And I was also respected for my transgender identity. I had another job where I was a piano teacher before I ever moved out to LA. And I also was, appreciated there. I will say at that job, there was a problem in them asking me to remain in the closet as I was just early on in my transition. And so there was the issue of discrimination there. But in terms of just being respected and treated as a human in general, not just us outside of being transgender, I didn't deal with the hostility. But at the same time, I've had a number of jobs. Currently, I have one, but before that, I worked in food service for a bit of time. I worked at a Chipotle, and then I worked at a Safeway. And Chipotle especially, I dealt with abuse from one of the managers in particular, but overall, it was an abusive workplace environment, and that corporation itself is known for being a shitty place to work. Safeway, I was appreciated, but it was still just an abusive workplace in general, I felt, and everybody was miserable there, and the pay was horrible. I feel like at the same time, it wasn't to the same degree, although, well, no, scratch that. There was a time when I got an anonymous phone call while I was in the bakery overnight by myself, and I picked up the phone, and the person said, "Fuck you, faggot," and hung up. And I'm pretty sure that was someone who worked there. I don't know who else would have called me that late, and I did deal with some discrimination there. Right now, I have a couple of jobs. One, I'm very thankful to be narrating audiobooks that pays fairly decently, and then I'm also working a little acting gig, performance acting gig in the city, where I'm appreciated and treated well by my friend that hired me. But it's at a animal shelter that I am currently working at, where I am dealing with issues that are really causing me to have anxiety and are really causing my mental health issues, are causing me a lot of stress and being like, oh my God, I need to find another job, and how am I going to do this? How am I going to get out of this situation that has become hostile and really difficult and verging on unbearable? Not to mention the fact that I'm not being paid a living wage to work there or even given full-time hours, which is not atypical of a lot of minimum wage jobs in general.
It just sounds like a bad work environment. And
yes,
but the reason why we take these jobs is the expectations of society. Like, instead of being like, oh, well, you have this disability and stuff, maybe we should help you find a job that suits you, or give you a disability until you get better, or if you don't get better, just live on disability and you're fine. But instead, we have this expectation of, what do you bring to the table? What do you do for my needs? What do you do for society? And it brings us so much anxiety, like, oh God, I have to do this. I have to do something, or I won't be considered a productive member of society.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not going to name the names, but I just lost a friendship. this person was like a sister to me. And I admit I was unprepared when I went to an event that she was nice enough to take me to. But in the letter that she wrote me when she wanted to break off our friendship, she said she felt like I was taking advantage of her. And I was like, that just cut deep, because I was just sitting there like, wait a minute. I didn't make you do anything. And it's just like, I was just unprepared. They didn't tell us exactly how long the event was going to be, what was going to be there. I wrote the place twice, and they just said, oh, you'll just come and talk about your book. I didn't realize they wanted me to sit at a table for 4 hours. And I do have autism, and sometimes it takes a while for me to process things, and I'm just sitting there like, it even goes to show that my friend, who is a nice person, I'm not going to trash them, but that even she has those feelings that if you live in poverty or are disabled or something, like, it seeps into people's minds that someone like me or you are trying to take advantage of them just because we may need help. And I realized that I've been down in the skids for a while, but not everybody can get on their feet within 4 to 6 months. And
absolutely,
that's something that society really, I think American society especially, because we have this fantasy look that America is the land of milk and honey, and that if you don't make it, it's your fault, not realizing that some people fall to the cracks because we get worse, our health gets worse over time, and then we have to adjust our life to our new conditions.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think that we need to stop expecting everyone to be able to do the same thing and be able to, like, the only way you can measure yourself is by comparing yourself to other people who maybe have a nicer home and stuff. And that just is a setup for a disaster.
Absolutely.
That's why you have so many depressed people, so many people with anxiety because they can't even pay their bills. That, a lot of people can't even live in their own place. They have to live with a family member or their parents. And people are just like, God, I went to college for this.
Yeah, exactly.
If we are going to use college to train people, college-educated people should be guaranteed a good wage, regardless of their degree.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because aren't we told that if you work hard, then you should succeed? Well, if you go to college and work your butt off to make good grades and stuff, then you should succeed.
Exactly. And I will be honest about college, and I did fall by the wayside at my second college. There were circumstances, though, like being bullied and dealing with roommate trouble and transitioning on top of that made it hard for me to focus. And on top of that, my obsessive compulsive disorder, and just a number of other things, my autism probably. And I will say that, like, my first year and then my last semester, I did get good grades, all A's and B's, for the most part. And I do have regrets about that. But I also picked up drinking to cope with things, and that was obviously not a good decision.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing, is that we need to get rid of the word bullying and call it what it is: abuse. Yeah.
And I think that took a psychological toll on me, period. And so, but the point of the matter is I did end up graduating and getting a degree. So with a degree, even if I don't know, lost my mind while I was away in college, I still got the degree, pulled it together. So we should be able to get a good job with a decent wage. And I learned my lessons, so I shouldn't be having to be punished for the rest of my life for it either.
Exactly. Like, people are like, oh, don't make bad decisions. That's easier said than done. Like, in hindsight, you may think it's a good idea what you're doing, but it may not end up that way. So, no, nobody should be punished just because they made a bad choice. Like, people should be able to get out of the situation they're in.
Yeah, Definitely.
And
Definitely.
pardon me. Like I said, it comes back to people looking down on those just because they don't have a certain skill set or they have a certain disability that we can't see. You see it in behavior and stuff, but you don't physically see it.
Yeah, and I have a coworker who will tell me things and be like, like, just look at me like, how do you not know these things, or what are you doing? Why are you writing all those things? Do you even read those things that you've been writing, or what are you doing? Like, basically just making me feel ashamed and like I don't belong there, and like I'm this nuisance that like is not qualified to do this job. But I was hired just like she was, and she isn't even a manager. Now, mind you, I have had managers also cause me trouble there. I do think there's a lot of groupthink at that place, and I'm the only transgender person working there right now. All of the other girls are cisgender women, and not all of them have been bad to me, but many of them have. And it has caused me a lot of anxiety and shame, and I guess I've been afraid to speak up or say anything because I'm trying to be grateful for the opportunity, and I'm the money factor, of course, and a number of other things. But I just, I'm at a point where it's like, I don't need, this job needs me just as much as I need them, and I don't want to just put up with this and deal with this in silence from people that, one of whom I went to high school with, another of whom was at my first college and could have very well been one of the people who would have bullied me had she known me, because I was bullied very badly at that college too. And then the girl from high school never personally bullied me, I don't recall, but I remember seeing her there. So it's like reliving my trauma daily at that job, and I know I need to get out of there. It has been convenient to some degree in getting me back on my feet and working, but after a year of being unemployed, essentially. But at the same time, it's like, this should not be. If this is the best, then I mean, it makes me suicidal or feel like death is better, and just hoping that Jesus just hurries up and comes back, because this is, it is unbearable. Like, or the fact that I'm considering like resorting to, resorting to like sex work and stuff like that because the pay is so terrible. These are things that I should not be having to focus on. Like, I mean, they're just not.
I think it's sad that, the way society, we built a society to fail, basically, the way we treat people. Like, you have to do this certain thing or you won't get ahead. And like I've said before, human beings have billions of DNA particles. We're not all going to think and act alike. We're not going to have the same skill set and everything, and it needs to change,
Yeah.
And it's going to be the last thing. It's going to be the last thing I touch on, but I just want to say that we need comprehensive anti-abuse measures, because no one should be abused in the workplace or school or any place, actually. There should be consequences for the people who do the abuse. And if you pay people below a living wage, people should know about it so they can avoid that place.
Yeah.
Because...
And I mean, the minimum wage, they argue, is a living wage, but it isn't. Minimum wage is never a living wage.
No.
That's the purpose. That's the point of it. To keep people down.
Yeah, exactly. And
an animal shelter that calls itself a humane society is not being very humane by paying people barely a living wage, expecting them to do so much work. And I understand it's a shelter, it's nonprofit, but at the same time, it's just like, if this is how it has to be, I don't accept that. I don't accept that, because I refuse. And if that makes me a selfish, spoiled, crazy person, so be it. I'd rather be selfish, spoiled, and crazy than pretend this humane society is human. Maybe it is to the animals. It's no-kill shelter and everything, but it's not very. I'd call it an inhumane society in the way it treats me, and for that matter, the employees who barely make a living wage. I mean, I'll tell you for a fact too. One of my coworkers was wearing a shoe for a while there when I started working, where her sock was sticking way out of her shoe because her shoe was so broken up, and she obviously couldn't afford another pair of shoes at that time.
It's just horrible.
That's your living minimum wage for you. And that's what the Humane Society pays people. And they don't even give us full-time hours. I mean, I know a lot of minimum wage jobs don't, but I mean, at the same time, it doesn't make any of it acceptable. It's sick. It's sick.
It is. Thank you, Erica, for bringing light to this. And this is Michelle Lynn Tackett, and we need to step up and change things on how we look at disabled people and how we measure people in society. Have a good night, folks.